Alrighty, alrighty. I am in a new spot. I am coming to you from a different, I don't know, identity. I'm Christian casting tonight, apparently. I am Dallas Jenkins. I am the creator of The Chosen and the owner slash power broker boss of Christian casting has asked me, Laura May has asked me to help out tonight, to join you tonight and answer some questions. I assume that since the name of the Facebook page is Christian Casting, that we're going to talk about casting. I hope so. Laura May is here, and she is going to be taking, kind of organizing some of your questions. She's already given me a few in advance, so I'm going to give just a few more moments for more people to join. Mark is here. Hi, Mark. Mark Bittner, one of our prayer warriors for The Chosen. But I'll just take a couple minutes to give you some time to join. And what I'm doing tonight for about half an hour or so is taking your questions and talking a little bit about The Chosen, but also talking about more than just The Chosen. I do a lot of live streams from The Chosen Facebook page, from The Chosen YouTube page. I'm a lot of times talking about The Chosen. And but I've been doing filmmaking and kind of pop culture commentary and speaking and whatnot for about 20 years now. And one of the things that Laura May and I have talked about a few times is not just The Chosen, but about casting in general. And I know that actors, especially, I'm assuming most of you are actors, but actors especially are oftentimes looking for opportunities, not just to act, but also to learn and to know how to, I don't know, maybe become a better actor is one thing. I can't really tell you how to do that, but I think you're looking for opportunities to get more opportunities. What are the ways that you can improve your odds of acting? And maybe you're not just an actor, maybe you're a writer or a director or a producer. I know Laura May is someone who does a lot of different things. And the key is just you're trying to learn how to network better. You're trying to learn how to give yourself more opportunities. We are now in an age of media and filmmaking where having one skill or focusing on one thing may not be the best way to go because it may limit your ability to meet other people, to have more opportunities. The more ways that you give yourself to succeed, the better your chances are. And I know that's obvious, but it's more obvious now than it used to be. It used to be, a little bit easier for you to focus in one direction, but now there's so many projects and so many organizations that you'd think, well, now there's more opportunities, but in some ways it's easier to get lost in the shuffle. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that tonight. One of the things I'd like to say, well, hello to George is here. Pierre, hello. Charles says, cool. Well, good. Hi, Charles. Hey, Denise says hello. Sarah says thanks for doing this. Of course, thank you. And Delana, I want to make sure I pronounce things right, is here. Let me first real quick share how I met Laura May because I think it speaks to one of the things I want to talk about tonight. Laura May has been a big supporter of, well, I was going to say a big supporter of me and a big supporter of The Chosen, but I can tell that she's a supporter of a lot of things. Laura May has extraordinary personality and desire to serve, a desire to give, to share, to connect, and I think that has led her to talk with me specifically about The Chosen and ways that she can help. But it's not just limited to The Chosen, and I think she's followed me on Facebook and made a lot of comments in our posts, and that has allowed me to kind of see her name more often, and that is a form of networking. So that when we met at the Hollywood Divine Film Festival, it was the first festival that they had done in Pennsylvania. This was late last year, late 2019. And she was there, and when she introduced me, I, of course, immediately recognized her and recognized her name and her face because we had interacted so often on Facebook. And one of the things that's one of the first things I wanted to talk about was networking. I'm not a huge fan of networking as a title. I'm always a little bit nervous of thinking, all right, so what do? I just show up at a film festival and just start talking to people. I mean, that's awkward. We have no point of reference, and I'm just not going to just want to approach someone I don't know and say, hey, I'm Dallas. What do you do? Sometimes you have to do that, but obviously it's a little bit awkward, and it's much better if you have a head start. Laura May is a great example of giving herself a head start. She does it in multiple ways, and social media is one of them. And I think that one of the first things you can do to network is being active on social media on other people's pages. And sometimes that just means being generous. Sometimes it just means sharing other people's things and commenting on them and being very active on other people's pages. And as long as you're not constantly begging for a job or begging for an opportunity, your very presence gets in their field of vision. I'm someone who, because of The Chosen, which is now international, and obviously over the last year it has grown pretty fast in its reach. And I'm part of a fan club group for The Chosen that's got over 20,000 people. We've got a YouTube channel, we've got a main Facebook page, I've got my own page. So I'm not saying that to brag, of course. I'm just pointing out that like I have a ton of comments coming in all the time, and yet someone like Laura May is someone who I recognized at the festival because she was consistent. And it's still possible, even in the midst of people like myself who on social media have a lot of different areas where I'm present, and literally hundreds of thousands of comments coming in over the course of half a year. I can still recognize those people who are frequent and who are saying things that are intelligent, saying things that are encouraging, asking good questions, showing up on Facebook live chats. The name starts to become familiar. And I could probably, off the top of my head, give you right now 30 names of people that I know and recognize who I've never met, but who have stood out because of their frequency and their intelligence in their questions and in their comments. And so that makes me want to be generous in return. And one of the ways that I got some more followers than normal on social media was that I felt like I wanted to be generous as well. So quick example, there's a movie that's coming out in a couple months, and our page is going to be cross-posting their trailer at sometime in the next couple days. We do that often. We'll occasionally just post nice things about other people's pages, offer our services. There's a book that I have in my library here. Let me see. I think it's right here. Okay. I know that was awkward for me to walk away from the camera. This book is called Show Your Work. And it's a short book, and it's the sequel to the book Steal Like an Artist, which is an amazing book. So if you are an artist and you have, you're trying to figure out how to get out there more, the book Steal Like an Artist and the sequel Show Your Work are invaluable. And one of the tenets of this book is basically like share. I mean, the back of the book says, share like an artist. You don't have to be a genius. Think process, not product. Share something small every day. Some of you may know Tori Martin, who is an actor and a writer, producer, is very active on social media. He literally tithes every day or every week. He considers a tithe some of his resources and time. He gives to other people his time. He gives advice. He shares his work. I try to do that as well. I don't do it quite as much as Tori does, but that's an example of, I mean, Laura May has just become so generous with her time, her advice, her questions, her promotion of other projects, that it has resulted in a feedback loop where other people are now doing that for her. And I was willing and happy to do this thing tonight for Christian Casting because she's been so helpful to me. And so I don't think that I'm anything special, and I don't think that I'm doing some sort of big, huge favor tonight. But I don't typically have time to do too many of these kinds of things, but I was happy to do it because it's for Laura May. And I had never met Laura May until this small little tiny festival in Pennsylvania that had probably just a couple dozen people. So anyway, I don't want to talk too much about that, but I'm saying that's what networking is giving yourself these little head start so that if and when you do meet someone, you can point to that other time that you talked to them. I'm the one who connected with you that other time when you posted about this, or I'm the one you met at the last festival. Just having those little conversation starters can make a big difference. So, a couple questions that I got that Laura May sent to me before I started this live stream one was from Ted, who simply asked, "How do we audition for The Chosen?" I know that that's not the main reason that you're on this chat, is just for The Chosen, but I will talk about that briefly and talk about how that applies to maybe audition opportunities in general. When we have a casting director for The Chosen, our casting director for season 1 was Beverly Holloway. She will probably be our casting director for future seasons. I don't know. Things may change. You never know. Her availability, our availability, it doesn't matter. But that's not the point. When we go to cast each season, we release through the breakdowns, the traditional casting breakdowns, our list of roles, and sometimes we're releasing the scripts. And there's also a website called faithbasedcasting.com, where sometimes we will post on there in case people who don't have agents or want to send in video auditions. We sometimes can do that. But I gotta say, it is just not possible for me personally to keep track of people who are submitting through me or trying to contact The Chosen directly. And so every day, or I shouldn't say every day, but several times a week, we get emails or comments to our main Chosen Facebook page. I want to be part of this. I want to act. How do I do that? And sometimes my thoughts are, if you are still thinking that contacting the director or the producer directly and asking them how you audition is going to get you the answer you need, you probably need to do a little bit more research on this business. And I don't mean that to sound harsh at all. And I don't mind people asking. It just usually reflects that they haven't done as much homework as they probably should. Laura May will probably tell you, and there's people like Stacey Bradshaw and Beverly Holloway who speak at these festivals, Christian film festivals, and who talk online a lot about tips on how to do this. But part of your homework really needs to be the best way to audition, the best way to have a chance is to pay attention to the casting breakdowns. And, I know that there's plenty of things about how to get an agent. I'm not going to tell you how to get an agent. But if you don't have an agent yet and you're trying to get one, and you're trying to appeal or apply for Christian projects or for, Christian production companies, the only way to do that is when they're actually casting. In between casting sessions, we're just not able to keep track of all those headshots or all those resumes or remember everyone who submits. It's just not possible. And so I'm going to, using The Chosen as an example, when it comes time to cast for season 2, we're going to release it through the traditional breakdown services. And you just got to be paying attention. And you should probably be checking them every day. And I have cast multiple people who didn't know me or didn't reach out to me until I posted my project, or my casting director posted the project. So for a quick example, The Two Thieves was a short film that I did several years ago about the crucifixion of Christ from the perspective of the two thieves on the cross. So I used a casting director. They posted it on the breakdown services. And that night I got an email from an actor named Christopher Malachy, who said, "I saw your posting and it was great. And here's my reel. And this project really spoke to me, or I fit the description of the character, and I hope you'll consider me." Now, a lot of times, if everybody did that, I obviously wouldn't be able to read all of them, but most people don't. He ended up getting cast because his reel was legit. He was a professional actor. He had representation, so that helps, obviously. That makes a big difference. But I said, okay, great. Wow, I really want to see you come in and audition. I sent a note to my casting director. I told him to make sure that Christopher Malachy was seen. He actually did a good job. I cast him in The Two Thieves. He ended up being the actor at the very beginning of episode 1 of season 1 of The Chosen, where he plays the dad of the little girl. So the very opening of season 1 of The Chosen is Christopher Malachy. And we've become actually good friends. But reaching out to me when I'm actually casting, and the fact that he fit the profile of the role and he had actually done his homework and read the description was 100 times more effective than someone randomly reaching out to me right now. For example, today, I'm not casting. I'm not going to be casting for probably a couple months. So someone who's, I'm just going to make this up, someone named John, who's 35 years old, a white guy, dark hair, has a certain look, whatever, reaches out to me and says, I want to be in The Chosen. Well, I don't know right now what roles I'm casting for. I don't know if I probably don't need a 35-year-old white guy with dark hair, because we don't have a lot of white guys in The Chosen. But I'm not going to remember it. I'm not going to keep track of it. I'm not casting right now. It's not in my field of vision. It's just not going to work. So just becoming a regular presence on my social media may help, and I might recognize his name when it's time to cast, and he notices that The Chosen is listed on the breakdown services and reaches out maybe and says, hey, I saw the role of, I'm going to make up a name. I saw the role of Vociferous, just made up that word, and it's actually a middle-aged Roman, and I think I could be interesting for that part. Here's my 30-second reel, or here's my reel. Would you consider me, or put me in touch with the person who I should be put in touch with? That is significantly more likely to work. And I have given auditions to, I would say, the majority of people. Well, I should say, I don't want to make that promise. I would say that the majority of the people who have reached out to me, who have agents and who have a professional reel, who have reached out to me during the casting process, I would say the vast majority of them I have had come in for an audition. The vast majority. Of the people who don't have agents and aren't full professionals yet, but who reached out to me during the actual casting process and had done their homework and had a specific role in mind, I would say there's a good chunk of them that I have at least passed on to the casting director or asked them to send in a video audition or something. I have responded in a favorable way. I would say almost none of the people who've reached out to me randomly have worked out just because I can't, not because I'm mean or because I don't like it or whatever. It's just I can't remember it. I can't keep track of it. So hopefully that's of use to you. Serena asked how to pray for The Chosen. Thank you for that. I know not all of you are here for prayer requests for The Chosen, but we can use constant prayer. This show is officially in every country in the world right now. It is growing a little faster than we can keep up with. My family is, and myself, we're suffering quite a bit when it comes to time and comes to energy, and it comes to, I think, the enemy going after us. We're doing a project like this. So my family can always use prayer. There's so many things we're trying to do, and not only are we trying to make sure that people see season 1, we're trying to make sure we can write and produce season 2. It's just craziness. It's just crazy. I've never dealt with a project like this where I'm trying to wear so many hats and trying to keep up with the impact that we're having while also produce new stuff. It's just been extraordinary. So any prayers are appreciated, but I know you've got your own things going as well. So prayers, I know you've only got so much prayer time, so you don't need to take all of that time or chunk of that time for The Chosen. But any prayers you do have are appreciated. Serena also asked, how is The Chosen changing things in the business for features versus multi-season shows? Crowdfunding is an issue. I know for those of you who are trying to get projects off the ground, and faith-based projects on the ground, when there's somewhat limited opportunities for distribution and financing, crowdfunding is for sure an option. When people ask me for advice, though, about crowdfunding, I don't necessarily have great advice, because The Chosen is kind of its own animal. It was based on a short film that I did for my church's Christmas Eve service called The Shepherd. It was, the short film about the birth of Christ. And it impacted people so greatly that they wanted to invest. So there's no formula for breaking the all-time crowdfunding record and raising over $10 million. A lot of it had to do with VidAngel having the foresight to do something like that, knowing how to build the mechanism for that. But they've tried it for they've tried it for another project. They'll try it for more projects that won't always work. I'm sure that if I would have tried a different project instead of The Chosen, and it might not have worked. It probably wouldn't have worked. So there, I think that you've got to have the right combination of short film or something that can give people the emotional response that makes them want to give or invest. You've got to have an idea that people are really passionate about, which it's hard to know. I didn't know that The Chosen was going to get the response that it did. You have to have a communicator like myself. I'm kind of the face of the operation, and I think that you have to have someone like myself who's passionate, who has been on camera before, who knows how to communicate. Again, I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. I'm just saying I'm comfortable on camera. I'm comfortable doing this kind of stuff, and a lot of directors, a lot of filmmakers aren't. If you're not, then it's kind of hard to generate that kind of passion. Learning how to speak, learning how to communicate becomes just as important as learning how to direct. I became a far better director when I started studying management, leadership, communication, public speaking. All of those things are becoming crucial, crucial parts of filmmaking now. It's a bummer, but it's true, especially in faith-based world, and especially if you're trying to fundraise through the crowd. And I think it's even true of private fundraising. You have to know how to talk to people and how to inspire people to your vision. But I would say find the money somehow to do a short film or do some sort of proof of concept, as they say, so that really gets people passionate and they are emotionally invested. And that when they're emotionally invested, they want to become financially invested. Sarah asks, what are the qualities you look for in an actor? And I wrote something down. Notes, work, talk about Kirk. Oh, I say, okay, great. I'd written myself a note and didn't know what it meant. Okay. So the qualities that I'm looking for in an actor, obviously, you have to be right for the part. I'm not looking for any one particular acting skill. Obviously becoming a great actor helps. Being a good actor is the number one thing I'm looking for as a director. But I assume that that's the case of most of the people who got agents and came in for an audition with a professional casting director. But you'd be surprised at how many people come in who aren't very good actors, who aren't prepared. I remember Beverly Holloway and I did a casting session in 2018, and the first day of casting was one of the worst days of auditions we've ever had, each of us. Half of the actors were not good at all. Another chunk were mediocre, and then there was a couple of great ones. But part of it was the fact that we were casting for a very specific type, and so when you limit your pool, that hurts you because it's hard to find good actors in general, much less hard to find good actors who fit a specific type, ethnically, gender-wise, or whatever. Anytime you're narrowing the field, you're reducing the number of great talent that you have available to you. That's just a fact. But constantly, Steve Martin says this. He says some people are trying so hard to figure out how to get a job, but they don't spend as much time on how to be good. And if you really, really focus on being great and work every day on being better at your craft, so that if and when an opportunity comes along, you're actually ready for it and you're good. That's huge. So when you come to a casting session or an audition opportunity, everything that you can do to give yourself an edge matters, because you're up against dozens of people who probably look like you and are probably just as talented as you are. Kirk Wohler, who has made a living as an actor for several decades and who plays Gaius in The Chosen, and I've worked with him on almost every project that I've done. He makes acting and a profession. Like his business is his career, meaning he's working not only on his acting skills and taking classes and studying the great actors and watching movies and all that stuff, but he also makes the business side of it a part of his career. He writes notes to casting directors before and after his sessions. When I first started working out of college, I got a job as a low-level secretary for a company out of Louisville, a small production company out of Louisville that was producing the Left Behind books into movies. And I got a handwritten letter from Kirk, along with his reel, that just introduced himself and said, I'm an actor, and looks like you guys are doing projects that mean something. I'm trying to do projects that mean something. Just wanted to be on your radar. Now, I said earlier that rarely works, and I would say it doesn't always work, but a handwritten letter, along with, at the time, it was a VHS tape of his reel, but I popped it in, and it was great, and I recognized him from NYPD Blue, and I wrote him back, and we became friends, and I've cast him in almost all my projects. And when he showed up for an audition in one of the first projects I ever made, he had the lines completely memorized. He followed up with a note to the casting director, a handwritten note thanking them for having him in. He wasn't begging for a job. He wasn't desperate, but he was just thankful. And he does that all the time. And so I have cast multiple people who I was between them and someone else, and they followed up with an email, or like they found my personal email address somehow, which shows a lot of wherewithal. Please don't do that all the time, but I have cast and become friends with people who just sent a personal note, followed up with my casting director and said, please tell Dallas, thank you. There was an agent, tell your agent this, there was an agent who used to write little notes every time that they would submit one of their actors, because you get a pool of actors submitted, and there's just dozens of them, you're going through them, and they wrote little notes in the online submission, which you see when you've got this online page of a bunch of actors that have been submitted through the services. Sometimes notes will stand out because most people don't do them. And the agent wrote a little note about every single one of his actors. She's really good at this, or she can do this language, or I don't know. I don't remember all that they were, but they caused me to click on almost every one of them. I was just intrigued. Those little steps do make a difference, and you got to find a way to do it without being desperate, without feeling like you're making it look like you're begging for a job. But being present, being active, writing notes, handwritten notes to a casting director, handwritten notes to a director, that are quick and just say thank you for the opportunity means a lot. I don't know. It's hard to define, but those things can give you an edge when all things are equal. Being completely prepared when you come in. I don't know why more actors don't do it. Why they're not more thoroughly prepared with the lines memorized, and maybe they've done their homework on the director. Walking in and saying, "Hey, I actually watched your last film. It was really good." Or if you didn't like the film, maybe at least you could find something to say about it. I'm telling you, all those little things that show that you've done your homework make a huge difference. So hopefully that's helpful. I've just got a couple minutes here before I got to go see my family. I'm looking at some of the questions here. Let's see. Let's see here. How hard has it been working as a Christian in the secular Hollywood industry? Well, I'm currently doing my own project, which is somewhat outside the system. I don't think that it's extremely hard to be any more hard to be a Christian in Hollywood than it is to be a Christian in any other environment, depending on how you wear it on your sleeve. I mean, if you're walking around saying my identity as an actor is as a Christian actor, I don't know. I mean, that may be awkward at parties. I think if you are working just to be a great actor, and your faith is part of your life, just like it would be if you got a job anywhere else. I mean, if you're a waitress at a restaurant, or a nurse or doctor, or whatever, an assistant, or if you're a guy and you've got a job as an assistant in Hollywood, you're not applying for the job saying I'm a Christian assistant or I'm a Christian waiter or waitress. And when you get the job at the restaurant, you're not saying, all right, well, I'm John, and I want to take Christian tables. So please allow me to be a server for Christian customers, or if you're getting a retail job, I think some people feel like they have to kind of I think because they find their identity in Christ, which is great, they find their career identity in Christ as well, which I think you can sometimes confuse. So I wouldn't think too much about, like, I think you want to be a professional, and your faith informs who you are as a person in general, but you don't have to necessarily make that the adjective for your profession. And I think when you feel like you need to do that, it starts to make things more challenging, because you start to overthink the roles that you're going to take, the companies you're going to work with, and you start to limit yourself. So I'm not telling you to sacrifice in your integrity or anything like that, obviously. But don't think too much about Christian versus secular. And there's plenty of good people in Hollywood, and there's even some Christians in Hollywood that don't necessarily work for Christian companies. And I just wouldn't overthink that too much. Mr. Jenkins, Charles Kimbrough asks, if this will probably have to be my last question, because I do need to go meet my family. And I'll wrap up with a few kind of other items before I go. There is such a need for more faith-based films. Why is it so difficult to get a script into the hands of Christian producers? I've had so many doors slammed on my face without even reading. I look like wood grain. That's a nice line. Well, I think your term "slammed in your face" is a bit harsh. And I think I'm going to take a moment here. I don't love even the nature of that phrase, because it implies that people are mean or angry about it. I don't think anyone's, I mean, first of all, obviously no one's literally slammed the door in your face, which I know you're using a line. It's fine. I'm not criticizing you. It's a figure of speech. But I speaking as someone who doesn't read scripts that are submitted to me, I'll answer the question, but I wouldn't say that I've ever slammed the door in someone's face just because I've said no. When you're a producer or director, you get contacted constantly from people who want you to read your scripts. So I get an email once every couple of weeks. I get contacted on Facebook once a week at least. People saying, I've got a project or I've got a script. Typically, we are so busy developing our own projects and our own scripts that we are not able to develop someone else's. And so the Christian film world is no different than the mainstream film world. You're not always looking for content. And when you are, if you just said, I'm open to all content from everybody, pardon me, you'll get flooded and you're not going to be able to read it all. So you have to narrow your scope. And so you'll typically hear from people who say, we'll only read, I'm blanking on the term, registered material or, agented material. So you're a screenwriter. You haven't been able to get an agent, which is the whole, I'm not talking about you specifically. I'm just using the proverbial you. But let's say you're a screenwriter. You haven't been able to get an agent, which is a whole business in and of itself. Getting an agent takes a ton of work, and you have to usually network a ton, and you have to oftentimes live in Los Angeles, or you have to write a script that's so brilliant and it's won so many awards that people can't ignore it. But so you've written a script. You haven't been able to get an agent yet. You reach out to, I'm just going to use me as an example, and I don't know you, and I don't necessarily know someone who you know who's going to recommend to me that this script is really legit. You should read it. How could I just don't have the time, and I don't have a person on staff who's dedicated to reading scripts. It's just not possible. So it's not mean. It's not slamming in the face. It's just, I'm in the same position you're in. I'm trying to get money for my project. I've got a script either that I wrote or that I read because someone I knew recommended a script to me, or I've got a book that I'm basing on, or whatever it is. I mean, it is just so difficult to generate your own projects, much less someone else's, that you're going to reach out to the Kendrick brothers, you're going to reach out to Rich Peluso, or you're going to reach out to the Irwin brothers, or Kevin Downs, or Gary Wheeler at INSP, or any number of producers or directors who you might see at these film festivals, and you say, I've got a script, will you read it? It's just not possible. And that's not a mean thing to say. It's just not, there's just too many. And most of them are going to tell you, yeah, I'm already developing a project. Now, occasionally they'll say, we're looking for new projects and new material. But even then, I mean, I did that once a couple of years ago. I think I was looking for a new project, and I kind of said that on Facebook. And I got flooded, but it had to be people that I knew or people that knew someone that I knew. Or, somehow there had to be some way to narrow down the field so that I wasn't reading tons and tons of scripts and missing the good ones. And so I would just encourage you, to read books like, again, Show Your Work or Steal Like an Artist. Show up at film festivals and ask people what are some tips on how to get an agent. Go online, become part of some Facebook groups and some online. Just you can even Google search, tips on how to get a screenwriter agent or literary agent. It is not easy. It is a full-time job. I would encourage you not to get into the film business if you're looking for a good business to do that's not going to make you crazy. But it is very, very difficult. And getting yourself educated on how to connect and how to find an agent and all that stuff is as full-time of a job as writing. And so I would just encourage you as much as possible to just make yourself into the best possible writer so that people can't ignore you. So that if someone happens to see a quick 2-minute short film you're doing on YouTube or some pages that you just posted on Facebook and said, here's the first 5 pages of my script, or here's a 5-page story that I just wrote, and it's so good that someone starts spreading it around, then people can't ignore you. I mean, just look at me. I was coming off of a career failure. The Resurrection of Gavin Stone was a box office disappointment, and I didn't have anyone lining up to finance my next project. I was starting from scratch in many ways. I did a short film about the birth of Christ from the perspective of the shepherds for my church. And it couldn't be ignored. I know that sounds arrogant, but people responded so strongly to it that when we put it out on social media, it went viral. And I've had other videos that I've done that didn't go viral, so I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but I'm just saying I did something that people couldn't ignore. And then the money flooded in. And the attention flooded in. And the talent flooded in. And the help flooded in. And so doing things that are so good that giving them away, that if you give them away, someone will be like, I have to work with this person. That happened to me just recently with a guy, a director who was trying to get a project going. It wasn't really working out. He has tried crowdfunding and it hadn't really worked. But I came across something that he wrote on Facebook. It was a chapter of a book that he'd written. And it was so compelling and so good. I knew he was a great storyteller. And I'm probably going to be mentoring him on season 2 of The Chosen as a director and writer. I couldn't ignore his writing. It was too good. So that's a great thing to do. But just cold calling and sending a script to someone you don't know, you probably will feel the door, quote unquote, slam in your face, to use that term, because there's just not time or enough energy or resources to read everything that people want to submit. It's a harsh reality. I'm sorry. So I got to get going, but thank you so much for your time. I'm so sorry I didn't get to all your questions. Hopefully Laura May can answer a lot of them, or maybe she'll forward some of them to me that weren't answered that she would like answered that I can maybe follow up on. If you haven't seen The Chosen yet, I hope you'll consider checking it out. You just look up The Chosen app. You go to wherever you get your apps on your phone and you just look up The Chosen. It's easy to find. You download it and you can be watching the episodes free within minutes. And if you say, I don't want to watch it on my phone, that's fine. You can connect it free and easy to your streaming device. It requires no subscription, no payment. You can just connect it to your Chromecast, Apple TV, Fire Stick, Roku, directly from your phone and be watching The Chosen. But in the meantime, I hope you will consider following and liking Christian Casting. Laura May is exceptional, and she's doing a lot of great things and is a treasure trove of help and advice and connections and generosity. And it's a community of people who are trying to work together, and you will find other people who want to work with you on something, and potentially your various skills could combine into a different opportunity. So I hope you'll follow up on that. Thank you for your time. God bless you. And remember, it is not your job to feed the 5,000. It is only to provide the loaves and fish. And I hope you remember that, because it's changed my life. God bless.